Welcome back to the Blue Collar Bench. It's Thomas, Kyle. Let's talk some sports.
Yeah, we had kind of a weekend off of some of the sports that we like watching, but it also opened up some opportunities for some new seasons to start. We got baseball starting, both college and professional, and we had the Daytona 500, which obviously is a prestigious start of the NASCAR race series.
Yeah, definitely a great starting race. We all look forward to it. Some of us look forward more to the last 30, 20 laps because there's always what they call the big one.
And they definitely had it. I mean, I don't know exactly how many laps to go, but I think it was around 10, maybe 12 laps left to go when they had that big crash that took out, pretty much all of the leaders.
Yeah, I believe it was 18 total cars were in that wreck. I believe was 18 of them, and it started at like third and fourth place.
Yeah.
So that's a big pileup. And I mean, you're going 180, 190 miles an hour. You're going to take some damage quickly. But yeah, that was the big one. We were all looking, I don't want to say looking forward to, but all expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was good. And then it ended up with one final wreck going into the final lap, and that led to the winner.
And I know a lot of people in the racing world are kind of, they're not upset with the winner, but they are tired of seeing these, caution, white flag. I don't remember. It's yellow, white.
Yeah, so the white flag being the final lap, and if you get the white flag and there's an accident, then it's wherever they're at right now for placement, which Byron was leading at the time of the caution under the white flag.
Yep.
I will say NASCAR, their entire can't even think of the word. All of NASCAR, they did well showing the photos where it was at. Yeah. Normally we look forward to a photo finish over a checkered line.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, they did well with it. They showed where he won when the flag came out, so there was no discrepancy there.
They had plenty of camera angles, and they did do a very well explanation on why they ended it when they did, and obviously it was by the rules, it was by the book. So it was definitely a crazy weekend for the fact that they didn't even race until Monday, and after that Cup Series race, they had a whole nother race after the fact. So after,
Yeah, the Xfinity Series, they were originally postponed to race, I think, at 11 on Monday, got pushed back again, and they didn't race until 9 after the Cup Series race. The Truck Series, they were able to get out on time with them before the rain got in, but being down in Florida, it could rain at any time. You never know. Yeah. You never know. No, it was a good race. They made it work. Like you said earlier in the week, the people that got tickets to that, they had a great day because they watched two great races. And what's better than a bunch of people out there watching cars go real fast and drinking beer,
dude? And something that I think is on everyone's bucket list to go to that event, and it's definitely on mine. I grew up going to a couple races up in Charlotte, but obviously, nothing's quite like, the Daytona 500.
Yeah, the opening Daytona 500 is great. I went to the ones at the end of the year, the Coke Zero 400.
Yeah.
It's still good, but it's nothing better than that first big race.
Yeah.
But it was crazy. Like I said, though, not a whole lot of sports going on as far as what we've been used to.
We did have...
Supercross was out, and football is officially out. That was unfortunate. We had to figure out how we were going to fill our time. Did lead to baseball. Got a little bit of basketball in there. College teams are doing decent. Coming up to March Madness coming up, so that's big. Just getting into the start of it since it's so early. Who are you going with for the major leagues?
Again, you know this. I've never really watched baseball through and through to actually have a sports or a team for me to back. But given the year of us going on this podcast world together, I decided that I'm probably going to be rooting for the Cincinnati Reds start to finish this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I have family members who live in Ohio. That's why I'm a Buckeye fan. That's why I'm a Browns fan. And before you ask, I know I should be rooting for the Cleveland Guardians, but my great-grandmother, diehard Reds fan. I remember watching baseball games with her growing up, so I'm going to root for the Reds with her.
Gotta go with Grandma. Taking the Padres. 2 years ago, I really started getting into baseball, watching a little bit, and I just, Juan Soto was kind of one of the guys that stood out, Manny Machado, and kind of stuck with them, and it seems to be the team. The only bad thing is, being all the way out there with their games, there's some late games.
Oh,
There's some late games.
yeah, and it's going to be. I know you've watched baseball a little bit more. I guess you would say thoroughly than I have. It's going to be a learning curve this year. I got to figure out, number one, who the players are, which players I need to look out for. Number two, I don't know how any of the seedings or placement or records go. I know they play like 100 and something games.
Yeah, they did actually. They changed it up at the start of last year, where they're no longer. You're not going to have the Atlanta Braves play the same team 13, 14 times in a year. So they did change it up to where they are going to play every major league team at least once. So that does help. That actually did level out the seeding for playoffs this year, and I think that's what opened up the door for different teams to move up and move in, and it kind of kept people from padding their stats because if you're playing a bottom team 14 times, getting 14 easy wins, it's going to help you out. But I think it'll be interesting. They definitely had a lot of rule changes last year, a lot more stolen bases. I think it's going to be more electric to watch the game for people that aren't diehard fans.
Yeah, I do remember, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, they introduced that pitch clock rule, and that obviously played a huge factor, not only making the games shorter, so you're not having to watch a 5-6 hour game, but it also made it to where, it made the pitcher's game almost, have to be heightened from what I've watched, because they did have to have that mental clock in their head, and they weren't able to slow down the game to their pace. They had to keep up with the pace of play. So
that is, as well as the throwing to first base to get people out if they're inching to steal. I believe they can only throw it 3 times, and on the third time they have to get the guy out. If not, he gets to move forward. So that keeps it where you don't have the pitcher just constantly throwing to first base and just killing time.
Yeah,
batters getting cold. They definitely sped the game up a lot. Last year, I definitely watched games that would have been 4.5 hours that were done in under 3 hours. It's crazy to get a baseball game done in under 3 hours. I think it's going to be good. A lot of good games. Still spring training right now. So no one's really getting a full swing as far as pitchers. They're going 1 inning.
Speaking of spring training, I don't know if it matters, but at the time of this recording, the Reds just beat the Guardians 4-0. So, hey, might be good for us.
Starting with a win.
I say us. It might be good for them. I'm just following along.
Yeah.
But no, I'm definitely pumped. You and I both have this that feeling of emptiness whenever you have football season ends to football season begins.
Yeah.
Hopefully, baseball will help.
It's a long wait.
Make that length of time shorten.
And the good thing is, we've got you always got hockey you can tap into. You got the NBA, college basketball, college baseball. They've started up. Florida did not start well in game 1. We got routed by St. John's University. Don't know what happened there. Just couldn't keep anybody from hitting home plate. But it's gonna be a rough year. I think it'll be good though. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that. And there's a lot more coming with the sport of baseball and basketball. Got playoffs coming up for that. Not too far, but right now it's still going full swing and a lot of impressive outings. The PGA.
I like what you did there. Full swing, going full swing.
Yeah.
But no, for real, I know we missed a chance to talk about last week's Genesis Invitational. Obviously, the highlights of that weekend was number 1, Tiger Woods coming back. I think we spoke about it briefly on the last episode. Obviously, he didn't have the showing he wanted to have, but the fact that he is, quote unquote, towards the end of his career and still has an impact like he does is incredible. The amount of fans that were following just him alone was pretty surreal.
That day 2 withdrawal got a lot of people because they were looking forward to seeing him. But just him to be out there, it was crazy to see because we didn't necessarily get to grow up with Tiger Woods watching it, so we watched kind of, I don't want to say the decline, but the end and just highlights.
Yeah.
So I think seeing it in real time would have been so much better than seeing highlights because everyone's highlights look good. But when it's just a constant 18-hole highlight reel, that's pretty impressive.
I think everyone wanted to see him finish on that.
Mhm.
The second highlight, or big picture that happened during that was the Jordan Spieth incident.
Yeah, that was.
This is for those of you who didn't know, Jordan Spieth played his full 18 holes in his one singular day. At the end of the round, the player and his caddy have to bring a official scorecard towards what would be considered the judges table.
Yeah,
and they have to sign off on it, showing exactly that this is what they scored, and they scored it accurately.
And I believe the other player you're with
has to
has
sign
your
off.
scorecard. So I would have your scorecard, you would have
Yeah.
mine, and I would have to look back and say, you got me for a 4. I had a 4. All right, that's right, and make sure everything's correct.
And basically, what happened with Jordan is, I think, he wrote down that he made, maybe a par, and it was actually a bogey. He was 1 point off on one hole, and they disqualified him from the whole tournament because he accidentally messed up his score on one hole.
Had a scoring error, and it cost him a paycheck. I mean, that's a big mistake, and from an outsider looking at you, like it's just a score. Just change it, right? It seems simple, but they have the rules they got to go by. He did own it, and he's like, "That's on me. I understand." A silly rule now, I would say, only because of how much of it is televised and how much you can go back and look at it and you can review things.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something. Obviously, you can't change it in the moment, but they're also sitting there at the judges' table or whatever it may be, and they see it happening, but they can't say anything.
No, and they can't, and that's what. I heard a guy on the Foreplay podcast with Barstool Sports. He basically compared it to the rules. That particular rule was established when professional golf was first now being a thing. So the early 1900s.
Right.
Well, this isn't 1927 anymore.
Yeah.
We aren't sending. We're not sending a player out for 5.5 hours and then expecting him to bring a proper scorecard back for us to review. No, we got cameras on him the entire time.
We're getting updated feeds on ESPN that's showing every hole, where they were, how they hit it. I mean, we could tell you the color of his shoelaces before he even gets on the course now. It is crazy.
And that's what I know you and I have talked about it before. Golf is coming into the new age where we're getting rid of, the old country clubs lifestyle, coming into this new age of sports. And I think that's one rule they need to readdress is I understand that it is a rule, and I'm not saying that Spieth shouldn't have been punished for breaking a rule. I'm not going to be, we saw what happened there with Michigan last year about breaking rules.
Yeah.
It is a rule. He didn't follow it. He made a mistake. He should have been punished. Had it been a disqualification the whole tournament? I don't think so. Could it have been 2, maybe 3 strokes?
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been a more fair.
He was doing. I mean, he was up there. I mean, he wasn't having the best round. I think he shot high 60s day 1 and day 2 ended up shooting a 73. So he didn't really have a whole lot going in on.
Yeah.
I think he just barely made the cut with that. But still, making the cut for golf. If you don't make the cut, you don't get paid. If you make the cut, you're guaranteed on most of these tournaments at least 20,000 up to 50,000 is where their bottom tier is. That's a big thing because a lot of people don't realize they're still paying their team, they're still paying their caddy. So him not being able to finish out the tournament.
And I don't know the rule, but I'm assuming they're paying for their own transportation to get to the event, which means they have to pay for their caddy's transportation as well. Now, obviously,
it's a contract they got up between each golfer and caddy. They agree on what they want to do, their time frame. Basically, they're signing a contract saying, "Hey, I'm going to buy you for this length of time during the season."
Yeah,
and that's essentially what it is. And he has to pay up for that. It was crazy. Hopefully, we don't see a lot like that because I think even 2 weeks ago, Rory had a mistake where it cost him 2 strokes. So that's another thing with all the televised though. You're going to see a lot more of this stuff. It's going to be noticed.
And that, what could benefit the game, and I don't know if, we don't make the calls, we aren't the ones making the big bucks who sit down and, and decide how the game of golf is played week in and week out. But if there were more officials, more PGA officials on the course, because like you mentioned, the Rory one, where he made an error on a drop placement.
Because they said he dropped closer to the hole, which you're not allowed to do on the drop.
Had there been an extra official there with Rory watching and advising, that course of action, it might have made it to where Rory could have, known that he made an error. Because in every other sport, if you make a foul in basketball, they let you know. If you make a penalty in football, they let you know. They give you a card, a yellow or red card in soccer. I think golf is just this mentality of you just got to do everything on your own and you have to do it perfectly. And if you don't, we're going to penalize you after the fact instead of just having an official be with you throughout each hole. I think I've heard a couple instances last season. Sounds like it's already coming up to a big factor this season. And again, if the PGA would just reanalyze how each tournament is played, maybe would make it to where, number one, the rules aren't as difficult to understand and follow, but also help with the pace of play, help the players keep moving forward, that type of thing.
It's definitely going to get more traction from audiences that have been around for years, and then the new ones coming into it. Social media world is going to crack down on them. They're going to praise them when they do great, and they're going to tear them down when they do poor in our eyes.
Yeah.
It's something that'll get addressed, and it'll come down to viewership. If people are going to stop watching because of that, then they'll make adjustments. They'll adjust as needed. Unfortunately, it's not something that can really happen during the year, so it'll be, okay, next year we won't do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that, away from the negative portion of it,
we had some spectacular
scorecards. Day 4 for the Genesis. Now, this is last week's. Little bit of scheduling error. Hideki Matsuyama went into day 4 6 strokes behind, which 6 strokes, it's a lot to come back from.
It is.
To not only gain those 6 strokes back, but get more because you already think the guy that's 6 strokes ahead of you, he's probably going to get 3 more on me.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't the case. The leaders, they played a decent round, but not enough to keep the lead. And Matsuyama comes in and shoots -9, and I think he was 4 or 5 groups before the final group. So he had posted a crazy low score shooting 9 under, and that's what everyone else had to chase.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he ended up winning the tournament. He was 6 strokes behind going into day 4. Comes back, shoots a -9, and wins the whole thing. $4 million prize.
Oh yeah, I mean
Crazy.
it was a phenomenal final day, and sounds like we're a broken record. Hideki had -9 to put on that win at Genesis. Week before it was Nick Taylor shot a -9 round.
Right.
And it just seems kind of repetition.
Mm-hmm.
But now I don't want to jump ahead, but at the time of filming, we just watched John Knapp.
Yeah.
Who just had 11 birdies in one 18 course round.
Yep.
18 hole, sorry.
11 birdies, 3 bogeys, which hurt his score a little bit. But it still got a 4-stroke lead.
It's 11 out of 18 holes he played, he birdied.
I haven't had 11 birdies probably this year.
I know for a fact I haven't.
That's
had one.
Yeah, it's crazy to think how dialed in these players are getting now, and how far along the clubs themselves have come to allow this. And it's almost a sorcery when you watch it. The way they place the ball where they want, the spin and everything. It's crazy. And this is a smaller tournament in
Mexico.
In Mexico, but as far as player-wise, you don't have all the big names.
No, and I think it's because a lot of the larger or the bigger names in the sport played last weekend. They played the weekend before, so this is a kind of
they could play in the
off week.
Now you got Tony Finau, he's in there. That was one of the big names going into it.
Which he I think had 2, maybe 3 eagles yesterday.
Yeah,
I know he had 2 eagles. He ended his round on an eagle because I lost my bet because of it.
Yeah, he.
But again, bad fan here. I haven't watched a whole lot of this tournament this weekend thus far, but it seems to be that's especially the par 5s might be a little bit easier than some of the other tournaments earlier in the year.
it's crazy now because everything just seems reachable. With I mean, you get to look. There's a lot of younger kids coming in. I want to say there was maybe 6 amateurs in the Mexico Open in this one, and
It was
one.
four.
Well, it was 4.
Yeah.
And then 1 did make the cut.
Yeah.
That's crazy. As an amateur, you're coming in for one of your first big tournaments, events, and not only did you play and make it to get there, but you made the cut.
Yeah.
Now, he won't be able to retain any of the prize being an amateur and have an amateur status.
That's fine.
But
He's
going
name
to get a card. He's going to get his name out there. He's probably going to get welcomed into some other events, that's why they do it. It's crazy to see. Can he do it again? Can he keep it up? Or is it going to be like last week where someone was up here, someone 6 strokes behind came back? Because obviously it can be done. 11 birdies in one day. That was a crazy score. Because at 9 they were like, he's 8 under through 9 holes. But yeah, seeing that go it was a crazy scorecard. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. I've seen low scores, but that's because they're getting eagles and stuff.
Yeah.
This is just 11 birdies.
11 birdies.
11 birdies is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty consistent golf. He obviously, is very comfortable with his clubs, with, how his round was going. And it's going to make it for, I think he had maybe a 4 or 5 stroke lead going into tomorrow now, the final day.
He's at minus 19, and I believe next is minus 15. So
yeah,
that's a good cushion.
He's got a 4 stroke lead going into the final day. He, it takes a lot of the pressure off. Obviously, and again, we've talked about it. The game of golf is pretty much a very solo-driven sport as far as the stress and decision-making goes, because, the PGA isn't going to help you. It's all up to the player. So
it's a big mental sport. It is one of the biggest when it comes to mentality.
Yeah.
There. So
I'm excited to see how that final day goes.
Yeah, it should definitely be some good golf.
I do want to.
I got to fill up a Sunday with something. Now that football's off, that's
well, that's what I'm going to shift into some football news that we got this week.
Yeah.
We have
some exciting news.
Two big exciting news in the football world. One directly impacts the game of football. The other one impacts the game we play at home on a PlayStation or Xbox.
The viewers got what they wanted for a long time.
Yes.
10 years waiting.
What was it? NCAA Football 14 was the last one. So yeah, 10, 11 years since we've had a college football console game, and we're getting one back. And there is a lot of talk going around. Obviously, Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Fowler has both come out and announced that they are going to be some of the voice cameos in the game, which is awesome. They were, way back when. I haven't heard if Lee Corso happened to be a part of that group. I would like to see if he.
It'd be nice to get some snippets or some pieces in there. They came out and said it's not gonna be Madden, which I think was a big point for them because that has seemed to lost traction the last few years. They did say you are gonna have the transfer portal, you are gonna have the NIL in there, which is crazy to think about. This had just come out.
I don't understand how. I mean, what are we going to be offering players Lambos to get them to come play for us?
I mean, or is someone else going to offer it, and I'm gonna lose my 4-star wide receiver that's trying to come in?
I'm curious to see how that's going to go. I think everyone across the nation and maybe further is super excited for this game because we have been waiting for it. I mean, shoot, I remember coming home from school in 4th, 5th grade. And the first thing I did was throw my book bag down, turn on my PlayStation 2, and here I am 6 seasons into, Ohio State, and I've gotten 4 natties under my belt. Like that dynasty building. We had our chance to be, the Nick Sabans, the Urban Meyers, the Coach Browns, the big names, and I know for a fact I'm going to do it again.
I'm definitely gonna do it. The only downside is I have not upgraded my game system yet, so I know I gotta get that.
A $500 PS5 to play a $60 game, it's worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. I'm definitely looking forward to it. It's gonna be great, and some cross play, some tournaments we got going on with the beef we got at work with other teams. You being Ohio State, me being Florida. We got some South Carolina, Clemson fans out there. Got some Michigan fans. Love them, but hate them.
I gotta ask, because this has been an ongoing trend on TikTok, is what team are you rebuilding? What is your team that you're gonna want to? I have mine.
Rebuild. I mean,
All right, let me phrase it. What is your underdog team that you want to take to the Natty on that game?
the underdog team, just because I don't think it's gonna happen, I'd run with Hawaii. Just take Hawaii and just see what you can do with it. Because they're always out there. I feel like it'd be a Cinderella story.
What is the Hawaii Warriors?
I think so. Yeah.
All right. So I was gonna go with Youngstown State.
Right.
It's pretty for two reasons. Number one, being a Buckeye fan, Jim Tressel, he coached at Youngstown State years ago. Number two, how crazy would it ever be to see Youngstown State in the national championship?
Oh, yeah.
And on top of that, they did confirm it's going to have the college football playoff in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So now the question is, does that mean it's the 4-team or the 12-team playoff to kind of slip that transition to the next topic?
I think they said you can actually adjust it. And,
okay.
You can actually, if you
want
to
do a March Madness 64.
you could if you wanted to. I mean, you got to run it. You do have a little bit of control with that. They did say they sent out. There's going to be all FBS teams in it. 138. Is that right?
130, 138.
Something like. They're all going to be in it. They did say the FCS schools are not yet in it, but they're not closed off to it. It's going to be crazy to see. They did say you can actually do, which is a big thing going on. Conference realignments.
Yeah.
You can actually align the conferences yourself.
They had that in the 2014 game. Mm-hmm. I remember that.
Mm-hmm. So that's still in there. That'll be nice because, if you had a team that, Texas coming over the SEC, we're like, no, I want them back in here. Let's see if we can do it in that conference again or something like that. You can revert back to that. You can change it completely. You can make 2 super conferences if you want to and duke it out for 16 teams.
This will actually be the first game that has the college football playoff because in 2014 it was still the BCS.
It was still the BCS, and you had to be that number 1 and 2.
Yeah, so that's gonna be interesting. And I just mentioned it. The 12-team playoff, they finally made a ruling. It is official.
It is official.
Let me rephrase that. We already knew it was official. They made a ruling on the 5+7 format. They made that official, meaning the 5 power conference champions get an automatic bid to the 12-man playoff, and then it's going to be the 7 outright or highest.
The next 7 best seeded or best ranked teams.
Yeah.
Your Power 5 though, I do like how they went because there was a lot of talk about Florida State last year.
Yeah.
They won their the ACC championship game. Do we put them in? Do they not? There's a whole lot of stuff. I'm glad I wasn't in that room. I know we talked about it when it came out. They will be in this new format with a conference champion. So you got the ACC, the SEC, the Big Ten,
Big 12,
and
the Pac-12.
The Pac. What's left of the Pac?
Yeah.
I believe there's 2 teams left in it right now. They're going to have to do some movement around there.
And the thing is there's not really a whole lot of teams to go after, a whole lot of schools. I mean, I think they're on the right track. I think they're probably trying to get some of the Mountain West schools.
Mountain West wouldn't be bad.
There's a couple. Obviously, in this day and age, it feels like conferences are no longer based on region, because you got Oregon and California coming to Pennsylvania and Maryland to play football games. But
that's going to be a big thing. I mean, with travel wise, and I think it's going to affect a lot of games.
But the thing is, the Pac-12 is kind of shot themselves in the foot because they don't have the capability of going after these schools like in the Sun Belt who are out here on the Midwest region, because those schools don't have the money to fly their teams out to California, Washington to play play games. So
unless they're not set to have. I mean, a lot of them. I mean, not in comparison to this level, but when I was in college, I played my freshman year. We took a bus from Arkansas to South Dakota.
Yeah.
A bus, like a Greyhound bus, because we couldn't afford the flight, we couldn't afford the tickets for that, and it did what you had to do. Now, if you're coming, coast to coast on a bus, you're gonna be gone for a week.
Yeah,
it's not doable. So they're gonna have to figure something out, especially if they're trying to run the 12-team playoff this year and run the 5+7. You don't have that fifth team right now.
No.
It's
No, I mean the best thing they can do is get some Mountain West schools,
fill it for this year.
get some of the independents.
Mhm.
It's going to take a lot. You got to convince Notre Dame to join the Pac-12. If I was sitting in the Pac-12's conference room,
Yeah.
I would go after them and see if they would join. But I'm excited for this new game. I'm excited for the 12 team playoff
12-team
format,
playoffs.
and
The possibility, though, of it is the Power 5 conference, but there are two conferences that stand out right now that are front runners with the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
There's a potential for 3 teams from one of those conferences to be in
or if not
almost
both.
every year,
If not
both. Yeah, because those matchups are going to be crazy. I mean, you brought Oregon and Washington.
Oregon, Washington, USC, and UCLA.
You're bringing that into the Big Ten, which was already
Pretty dominant.
I mean, Michigan won it all, so they showed how dominant they were, and they're bringing in the team that they beat.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy to see, and the SEC, yes, fell off this year with not being able to get back into it. Brought in 2 powerhouse teams. It's going to be interesting to see some massive conferences now. 16 teams, I believe, for the Big Ten. I think the SEC is still at 14.
I think the other way. I think SEC's up there too. XCC's got to be 16 by now.
And you might be 18. The SEC, I believe, we're still 2 behind right now. But it's still crazy when you look at it. Like, we're figuring out, do we have 14 or 18 teams, and Pac-12's got 2.
Yeah.
Pac-12.
Pac-12's got some work to do.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for the upcoming football season. I'm excited for the upcoming baseball season.
Mm-hmm.
This weekend of races in college.
It's going to be
races and
NASCAR, Xfinity.
golf.
You got Supercross that'll be going on here shortly. Looking forward to that.
On and on. I'd say we see y'all next week.
We'll see you next week after we watch this race, and we're going to have some fun.
Yes, sir.